fill this out, and then I'll tell you what to do with it. So the most important sections are the sections in red. You have to check section 1, that you're a citizen and that you'll be 18 by election day. And then, of course, you need your last name, first name, and middle name for section 2. You'll see it on the screen. Section 3, you need to fill out the date of birth, and then either the last 4 digits of your social security number or your North Carolina driver's license number. So we think one of those 2 items is really important. Section 4 is where you live. So you need to put your full address, and if you have an apartment number, and we think a phone number is really important. If there's anything wrong, the Board of Elections can call and make sure to fix it. And then only fill out section 5 if you don't get mail where you live. Then everything else is optional. They can choose to fill it out or not. And then it just needs to be signed and dated. And what I recommend, since we're so close to the registration deadline, which is Friday, is that you just bring this with you to vote early, because you can register and vote the same day during early voting, which starts next Thursday, October 20th. When you register at early voting and you bring this with you, just make sure they bring a photo ID or a piece of mail or a check that has your name and your address on it, so that the Board of Elections can say, yes, this is who you are, and we will register you, and then you can get your ballot and vote the same day. I'll email it to school. I don't have it right now. So yeah, the registration deadline is this Friday, so it's really quick. So we just recommend that if you're going to fill out this ballot, that you just bring it right with you to early voting. To register the same day at early voting. And then this is one less step you have to do while you're there. And so tell your parents to vote early. Remember how bad the weather was on Saturday? It was pretty rainy, pretty stormy. We had a hurricane. That could happen on November 8th. So why wait until November 8th to vote when you have 17 days, October 20th to November 5th, to vote early? You can vote at any early voting site in Durham County. There are 13 of them. I've got a little handout, it's a little strip that has the Durham early voting schedule. So if you look at that handout on the front with the You Can Vote logo, those are the sites that are open for the first 6 days. And on the back, it has all the sites and the times for the last 10 days. So there are a lot of times and dates, evening, weekend hours. There's 2 Sundays and 3 Saturdays where you can vote early. And what I think that you should do is you should ask your parents to take you with them. You can help them fill in the bubbles, and you can vote for president yourself. You can go after school. A lot of these locations are open till 7 p.m., or you can go on a weekend. You can go after church on a Sunday or on a Saturday morning. So ask them to take you with you, you with them, so that you can learn about voting and just have a real experience, so that when you turn 18, you'll be ready to know exactly what you need to do. When you go vote, you tell them your name and you tell them your address, and if you need to register, you register. And then they give you your ballot. And your ballot looks different than my ballot if I live in North Durham, because I have different legislators. But all of our ballots look the same at a certain point. It's 2-sided, and you'll see it's like a test. It's all these little bubbles. You have to choose your choice for all these races. And I really recommend you start from the bottom. The reason why is that the people on the back of the ballot and on the bottom of the ballot are the ones that are closest to you. They're your neighbors. These decisions impact your life on a much closer level than the president. So we're going to start from the back, bottom of the ballot, to the things closest to home, and go up from there. We can vote in Durham to we can choose if we want to give the Museum of Life and Science some money for some repairs that they need, an expansion. So you can choose whether you support giving more money to the Museum of Life and Science. Who has been to the Museum of Life and Science? Cool. Community college bonds. The Durham Tech is asking for $20 million to build more classrooms. That's another choice. You can decide if we want to give them money to help build more college classrooms. The library, the main library needs to have a major overhaul. They want to build pretty much a whole new building. Do we want to support that or not? Public schools. Do we want to support Durham Public Schools building more buildings, buying land, equipment, and building a new school for you? That's a choice on your ballot, yes or no. Then there's our local soil and water supervisor. These people make sure that our water is safe and clean. District court judge. If you end up going before a judge in Durham, you want to make sure that judge is fair. Who do you want to be on that bench? And if anybody recognizes any of these people as I slide through, raise your hand. Anybody recognize either of these people? Cool. I know both of them as well. Okay, now we're flipping to the front. We're going up. State Supreme Court. These people make the decisions for our state. If we have to appeal something as being fair or unfair, we appeal it to the North Carolina Supreme Court. Durham County Commissioners, does anybody recognize any of these people? I know every single one of them as well. These people, Durham County Commissioners, make decisions about funding for Durham Public Schools, as well as our social services and our human services. So it's really important to get to know them, and you can give them a call if something's wrong, as long as you know them and you're voting for them. State House of Representatives, Larry Hall is running unopposed, and he's in this district. State Senate, these are people that are at our state legislature. State Treasurer, this handles the state money for North Carolina. State Superintendent of Public Schools, making the rules for all of North Carolina public schools. North Carolina's Secretary of State is also on our ballot this year. And Attorney General. All of these offices that I just said are up every single 4 years. So that every 4 years you'll have these choices. And our Lieutenant Governor, it's kind of like the VP of NC. And the Governor of North Carolina. It's a pretty important race. Every 4 years we get to choose a new governor, or not. We could re-elect the one that we currently have. Then we go on to national. This is our U.S. Congress. G.K. Butterfield is running again. He's got 2 opponents. And then the U.S. Senate. This is every 6 years. Congress is every 2 years. Senate is every 6 years. So Richard Burr is running again. He's been in office 2 times, and Deborah Ross is running against him as a challenger. Then, all the way at the top, you finally get to president. So you see, a lot of these people started as soil and water, or county commissioner, or a district court judge, or a state legislature, and they get promoted to higher and higher office. So when you look at the president and some of your parents, I've heard a lot, people are not super excited about who the presidential choices are. I've heard this. I've heard some people who are really excited about their presidential choice. But regardless, electing good people lower on the ballot that eventually go to the middle of the ballot, that eventually go to the top of the ballot, you want to make sure that those people that you vote for locally listen to you and are good, so that when they get promoted or not to a higher office, that they'll still listen to you. All right, this is the end of my presentation. I was ready to take some questions that you have about voting or how you can help your parents vote or early voting or anything. The one thing I can't talk about is who I'm voting for. We're not going to talk about those opinions, but I can answer other questions. The teachers, I'll let the teachers handle calling on students. Okay. Okay. The Libertarian Party, yeah, good question there. Libertarian Party is on the ballot in a few races in North Carolina. There's lots of information about what the parties, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, stand for, and those are all online. But I can't go into the details of what parties mean and stand for. All of their platforms and what they believe in are all online if you do a little research. I'll let the teachers take a question. He asked a question if that North Carolina passed a law that you don't have to be qualified to register to vote. Oh, a photo ID. Great question. This is one of the things that we've been working on a lot in the community is telling people the truth about what they need to bring with them when they vote. There was a law that you had to bring a photo ID with you, that every voter had to bring a photo ID. The Supreme Court struck that down, so we do not have to show photo ID when you vote. The only time you need to is if you're a brand new voter and you're registering at early voting. Those are the only people that need to show ID. So you can all tell your parents, the photo ID law was struck down. If you voted before, you do not need to bring any form of ID unless you're registering. Good question. Oh, what are the animals people? I'm sorry, I didn't go over that. So the animals below are the parties. So the symbol for the Democratic Party is a donkey. The symbol for the Libertarian Party looks like a hedgehog. And the symbol for the Republican, oh, it's a porcupine. Thank you, Dove. The symbol for the Republican Party is an elephant. That's just like their logo, their brand. Great question. She asks how kids could be involved besides making sure all of your family and all of your friends who are eligible go and vote and know the rules. There are a few things you can do. You can go door knocking with a partner and get involved in either of the campaigns if you'd like. We at You Can Vote are doing phone calling to remind people where to go to make their election plan, what to bring. We will also have some events where we'll be passing out early voting information in the community. We've got those schedules that we're going to try to get in the hand of every voter. So there's a few ways you can get involved. Phone calls, handing out voting information, making sure your whole family votes. Our website is youcanvote.org, and we have a volunteer sign up if you'd like to be involved. We do have some teenage volunteers who help us assemble materials or pass out materials, and even with some phone calling. So if that's something you'd like to do, we'd love to have you. Dove has a question. Why don't they put the local races on the front of the ballot? It always goes from the highest office to the lowest office, and I feel like it should be reversed. Can you repeat the question? What are the rules that the different parties vote for? All that information is online about what people stand for. That's not something that I really talk about. We just help people become voters. So if you want to learn more about what Republicans, Libertarians, Democrats stand for, or these candidates stand for, they all have websites that say exactly kind of what they would like to do if they are elected. Very good question. So he asked why we haven't heard much about Gary Johnson, and we've heard so much about the Democratic and Republican candidates. We primarily have a two-party system in the United States, and so the news and the media focuses mainly on the two major parties. It didn't used to be that way. A long time ago, we had different parties, and in some countries there are many parties, and it doesn't work this way. I know a lot of people who think that we should have more parties and more people and more voices in the process, but for now, we're kind of dealing with the news and people paying the most attention to the two major parties. But it could change. What was that question? Oh, how old do you have to be president? 35. But you can get elected to local office at 18. Oh, good. Yes, thank you. Good question. If you don't know who the candidates are, how would you decide? I recommend that you do some homework. The state of North Carolina has a voter guide, and other organizations also have voter guides. I say go to a place, a newspaper that you trust, or an organization that you know researches candidates, and you can look. They usually do a good job of telling you what candidate stands for what, and then you can make your decision based on that. But the newspapers do a pretty good job. I know the Indie Week, have you seen those? They're free around town. They do a pretty good job of writing up what everybody stands for and who they endorse. So you can take a look and see if that lines up with what you think. Good question. Are you required to fill out every box on the ballot? No, you're not. And what I always say, if you don't know, if you're just like, well, this person has a better name, I like the name so-and-so better than the name so-and-so, then I just would leave it blank. But I do recommend that you go somewhere that you trust, a newspaper or something, do a little homework before you get in there and make sure you know everybody that's on your ballot so that you are prepared to vote in as many as you want to. Kids can definitely go into the voting booth with your parents, and I recommend it. Now that you've had this wonderful education today, you can help them, and you can even help fill in the bubbles and vote for, you could be the one that votes for president, even though it's really your parents' ballot. Okay. I can't hear. Good question. So the questions about the money for life and science or money for public schools, it's a yes or no question. You read the question, do you support giving this amount of money to this place, yes or no? And then you just fill in which bubble is your choice. Good question. Sorry about that. Who else? There's not very many other parties that are, well, there could be a few other parties. I know that there's a Green Party candidate for president, Jill Stein, but she's not on every ballot, and I don't think she's on the North Carolina ballot. But like if you go online and go look up who's on your ballot, you'll be able to see every single candidate and every single party that's on your ballot. Why don't we have like libertarians and other parties at debates? There are certain rules about how much support you have to have nationally on a national poll to be included in those debates. And so if you don't get more than like 15% support, I don't know the exact number, they're not going to let you be part of the debates. A couple more questions? The teachers still? Oh, what does You Can Vote do to get to lower income communities to help them vote? That's a really, really good question, because that is primarily who we are helping become voters. We are in Durham Human Services building every single day for 2 shifts a day with volunteers. We just went to the Durham County Detention Center to make sure all of the people who are currently in jail waiting for trial get to fill out their ballot and get absentee ballots sent to them. We're in shopping centers, we are in apartment complexes. We go where the people go, where they work, in hospitals, healthcare centers, all sorts of places where people either get services, work, shop, live, to make sure that they have accurate, up-to-date information and that they know their rights and the rules.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody had on their voter registration form the address. So before we go, can you get out your pens real quick and just write down the address to send the voter registration form to? It is P.O. Box 868, Durham, North Carolina. That's P.O. Box 868, Durham, North Carolina, 27702. That's P.O. Box 868, Durham, North Carolina, 27702. That's on the back of the voter registration form. And Ms. Farman, will you pick out your 4 best questions to give away those t-shirts?
Okay. Okay. I've got to remember the good questions. I remember you had a good question. I loved your question. And you're already wearing orange, so you need some more orange. Okay. So I need the student who asked how else they could help. You need a t-shirt. What other good students do we have?
I don't know what was the best question. Figure out who the student is.
I love your question. I like the question about researching all the candidates. The student over here that asked about at the bow. You had a wonderful question. I would like to give you a shirt. And then I really liked your question as well. Thank you. And then I loved your question too. So, and if I don't have your size, I will come back with the right size. Thank you so much for having me, Rogers-Herr. You can go to youcanvote.org to find your polling places, your early voting sites, anything you need. Thank you for being future voters.
About that address, everybody, that address I gave you, look, if you look at your voter registration form, here's the voter registration form. On the back of it, on the back, under the little squiggly lines, it says, official election mail. And you are going to write the address there. P.O. Box 868, Durham, North Carolina, 27702. And there's a caveat.
If you're filling this out with your parent, and they're signing and dating it, and you put a stamp on it, and you actually mail it, you need to do that today or tomorrow, because it has to be there by Friday. Otherwise, bring it with you to early voting, or get a new one at early voting. It'll just make early voting go faster if they need to update their registration. They have this ready to, and already done, so, thank you.
How about a big hand for Miss Kate Feldman? With You Can Vote. Thank you all, you've been an awesome audience. Thank you for all the fantastic questions. I hope you have a really great day.